What's up, YouTube? Three Pedal J, and I am definitely not in the garage today. I am far, far away. I am in Texas, and I'm here with MRH. As you can see, we are doing Rocky Mountain Drag Week, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm getting ready to come to my uncle's house, and we are going to discuss some of the things that influenced me. And right here, you can see my uncle has a Hellcat. We are a Mopar family. And then my uncle also has, we don't really care about the Cadillac, but that's whatever. But more importantly, my uncle's got this very badass stick shift demon. This car is in the process of getting a new A833 in it, but we're gonna talk to my uncle real quick and have him explain some of the stuff. I just felt like this was gonna be a cool little series of the influences of a three pedal J. What kind of got me to where I am and why I am who I am. All right, guys. So I'm here with my uncle, and I'm about to take out his Hellcat for the first time ever. I've never driven a Hellcat. I have driven plenty of booster vehicles, mine and Don's and other people's, but I have never driven a twin screw supercharger. My cousin Ty over here, he has had several Hellcats, and he knows what it's like. I feel left out in the family, and finally Uncle Joe said yes, so we're taking it out. After we go for this ride, then we're gonna come back, sit down and chop it up for a minute. Stay tuned. So guys, I just got back from driving my uncle's Hellcat, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed. I wasn't impressed with Hellcats before because my car has been faster than Hellcats have gone, but I stand corrected. They are so comfortable. They are so much fun to drive that I almost wish I got a Hellcat now. I can't really say enough good things about it. And I'm not saying it because it's a Hellcat. I'm saying it because I just drove one and I see all that they have to offer. It's pretty bad. I mean, it's comfortable. It's instantaneous. Get up and go. It's everything you want. If you don't drive it hard, it drives like a normal car. It is really, the twin screw really does do its thing. I'm impressed. More to come. All right, Uncle Joe, you're on my channel, Three Pedal J. And before we even get started, nothing funny, because the world's gonna see this, so don't be embarrassing me.
No jokes.
In all seriousness, thanks for giving me the opportunity to interview. You're the first of three, and what I'm calling the influences of Three Pedal J.
Gotcha.
So we're just gonna talk about a little bit about our family and primarily based on Mopar. So my channel is based on what you always tell me, Mopars, obviously, but more importantly, three pedals, grabbing gears and disappearing. My whole life, you've told me, you want to go fast, get it automatic, and I've always told you, I don't understand, Uncle Joe, but I like shifting gears. So part of that came from, obviously, well, but the channel doesn't know. My dad, I've always said my dad is probably one of the best stick shift drivers I've ever seen in my life, and then Ronnie Socks is my hero, besides my dad. And then I found out later in life that she was kind of a little bit nice with the gears too. I still think I'm better than you, but I'm not gonna definitively say that. But in any event, what influenced you into getting into the Mopar community? I was born into this. I didn't have a choice.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, your dad, my older brothers coming up, that was pretty much all they drove at that time. Your dad had, it's going back that when I can remember, but even before then, they've had cars. Him and my brother Sam, Frank, and George had cars together. But your dad had his New Yorker. Then of course he got the Roadrunner. My brother Sam had the Satellite,
right?
and
Yeah.
he had the Super B.
The Super B, yep.
Ironically, I mean, there was a time, George, they used to drive a Camaro, and then he got.
It was white with an orange stripe, right?
No.
Or white with a black stripe.
He had a '68 Camaro. It was a green one.
Oh, okay. See,
and then he had a black. They had a black '70, I believe, and then they got like the '71. They got the Rally Sport and all.
Okay.
But I mean, but he had he got the Swinger, the '69 Swinger.
The infamous Swinger.
Bought from my cousin Kenny.
Okay.
So I mean, we just had a bunch of cars. We had, you know, the GTX,
Yeah, well,
which has been an icon
that's
in the
that's gonna
family.
get talked about here soon.
You know, your dad's the Coronet that he's got now, the RT he's got
Yeah.
now.
The dusters, the
There's been a
scamp,
bunch of
the Mars.
dusters, scamps. There's just been a wide variety of cars that we've had, and for me growing up, you know, I grew up with, you know, working on cars with your dad, you know, changing motors and transmissions out back of the building.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, your dad, you know, was a stickler of, you know, if you want to drive, you got to know how to work on them a little bit, and you got to clean them.
You
And so and that was
you
it.
almost in a sense, in all reality, it's funny how it works. We've had this conversation throughout my entire life, but you've often said to me, you know, life has a funny way of working in circles. It's almost like you were my dad's first kid in a way, from just listening to the way you're talking, because everything that you've just said, I heard my entire life. I still hear to
Yeah.
this day.
Yeah, I can. I mean, there's just things with your dad. It's just funny. All right,
I was gonna see you in the morning.
see you guys.
Sorry.
You know, like I said, my three older brothers, particularly, you know, with me being the youngest, you know, and at that point, you know, my mom and dad had split, so they pretty much were the ones for me, and I was just with them all the time.
How ironic is that?
I
Because
mean, it's just
wasn't I with you all the time?
right.
If I,
And then
if
you
I don't
were,
remember, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if I'm mistaken, I vividly remember walking up and down a hill in
yeah,
zero
you
degree
were with me all
weather
the time, and I was, you
all
know,
the time with you.
yeah, I was with your dad, and then as you know, I got a little bit older, and you came along, and then you know, I was with you, and you know, because your mom worked with the
Yeah.
state, and you know, your dad, you know, I'd have you, and he'd give me the car, and you, and we'd roll.
We were a package deal. You
Yeah,
got the car,
package deal.
but you had to take the boy
Keys
too.
and you, so that was it.
That's funny. I
Yeah.
never thought about it like that, but that's funny. So I was only allowed to hang out with you because you wanted the car.
Nah, but I mean, I was always with your dad, so it was just a natural progression of how things just kind of evolved with that. But being with your dad, I mean, and my brothers, we were always around cars. I mean, even as a kid, you know, your dad and his friends, you know, everybody had a hot rod back then.
Absolutely.
And you know, and I can remember going on, you know, we would do family picnics and cookouts, and you know, as kids, we would race to see who's going to ride with who because we knew going home there was going to be a race.
There was going to be a race.
You know, and those
Absolutely.
guys raced, and I mean, there's just great stories behind them racing. You know, back then, from Saratoga back to Troy and Albany to Troy, and just different places. But you just always had these cars, and
Kind of like a staple in our family, huh?
staple in our family, and that was it. And like you said, you know, your dad, you know, I believe the guy's name is James Davis down in Catskill. He was a stick guy, and he was the guy that really influenced your dad.
Oh, really? I didn't even know
And
that.
so, you know, coming up, your dad was just that guy. I mean, he
My
could
dad was
drive
a
he
bad
could drive a 4-speed. He was a guy, and watching him over the years, and it's funny because one of my first jobs, I worked as delivering auto parts, and you know, we had these Toyota pickups that were standard, and I used to emulate what I saw your dad do in the trucks. So
I did the same thing.
so it's, you know, and that's just how it is. You know, you get
sorry.
your technique, and you know, I watched what my brother did, so I emulated that.
Yeah.
And you know, you just pick up things. You learn how to, you know, you listen to the car, and you can kind of tell when it's time to shift. You know, you necessarily don't really need the tack. You
No.
kind of get a feel for the sweet spot, and you know, you practice, and you know, I saw my brothers do it, so I wanted to do it, and it was just something I picked up from your dad.
Yeah.
But you know, it just came with being in the family. You know?
That's what's up. I got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
The first one is this. Do you remember the car that I'm going to say our family had? It doesn't matter who bought the car or owned the car because as we both know, whatever we had in the family growing up, whoever needed it had it.
Right.
That's just how our family worked. Am I misspeaking?
Yeah,
Am I speaking out of turn? I remember seeing that because I remember many times when my dad had something, and if Uncle George needed it, then he would give it to him.
Yeah.
If Uncle George had something, my dad needed it, he would give it to
So
him.
so many cars
changed hands, right?
Because I mean, again, you know, we're close knit, you know,
Yeah.
brothers. You know, the GTX was George's. He gave it to Frank. Frank gave it back to him.
Yeah, don't talk about that
You know,
story.
and there's just a lot of things like that. A lot of things with different cars. And there was a time where they both had 68 Roadrunners. They both had blue 68 Roadrunners.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, your dad had a 68 Roadrunner, and then George, after the Swinger was crashed, he got a 60. He bought Joe Holmes' 68 Roadrunner. Joe Holmes is a guy that lived in Troy, and he sold it to Anthony Canty because the car was a pig. He hated it. It just wasn't fast. So I mean, yeah, there's just been a lot of cars.
Do you remember the car they called the Farm Machine?
The Farm Machine is actually why I have the Demon outside. The Farm Machine was a 71 344 speed Demon.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
It was a B5 blue car with a black vinyl top. I mean, it was the exact same car that I have now, except for my car's red.
Yeah. And that one has slicks everywhere we went.
Yeah, it had slicks on at the time, but it was a street car. You know, it was a 340. They actually gave the Farm Machine to my brother, to Leonard.
Okay, I didn't know that. Tell me more.
Yeah, there's a picture. I gotta find it. There's a picture of me as a kid standing in front of the Farm Machine because, you know, Leonard took it apart and behind the
I've seen that picture. I've seen it. Uncle George has it.
Yeah, so he sanded it down, took the motor. He had great aspirations of what he was going to do with it, but the car never made it out of the parking lot again.
And it's crazy because that was the car I vividly remember, because we had that in a family before the GTX.
Yeah, the Farm.
So that was the car that I vividly remember my dad going. You remember Water of Leaf, the bridge, the Water of Leaf, the Troy Bridge. And this is a terrible story, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. My dad made me pee on myself going over that bridge, and Uncle George made me pee on myself going over that bridge in a DTX, and it was within a year or so apart. Like the Farm Machine, my dad was going over, as I say, he revved it up, dumped the clutch, grabbed the gear, and disappeared. And I had never been that fast in my life, but that was when I fell in love with it, because the sounds that car made, and the things that I saw my dad do with that car, I'd never seen any individual do then or now.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Uncle George can get down, but anyone in the family, even Uncle George will say it's not like how my dad does.
Yeah, your dad, I mean, you know, again, it was just, you know, he's just got a knack for it.
Yeah, he's just got a knack. And being his son, riding around with him for all of those years coming up, whether I wanted to or not, I just fell in love with the things that I saw him do with three pedals. Yeah. I just did. And that's why, to be honest with you, that's why I could never go to an automatic, because I always seen what could be with a manual.
Yeah.
It was different for me.
They're fun. I mean, I think for me, the thing about it is with racing and stuff like that overall, it's all about consistency.
Yeah, you've told me that many times.
It's about consistency, and the automatic, especially nowadays, you can get away with so much with these newer transmissions, with the automatic transmission. But just for cruising around, just having fun with the old school. I mean, standard is just fun to have on the street. But, you know, you're as consistent as you are a person. You know, you're at some point you mess up, you over rev or something happens. You know, for an automatic, you just don't have that.
I gotta get you, since you giving me the opportunity to drive my first Hellcat, and the only Hellcat I've driven, I want you to drive Frankenstein, who you affectionately named.
Yeah,
I gotta get you in that, because then you will see just how consistent you can be with a stick car too. But I can't tell you. I have to show you.
No, I mean, there's a lot you can do with them. But it's just a different animal. You know, it's a different animal. I really like the automatics. I like the sticks. I mean, like I said, I have the Demon out there, and, you know, the 340 4-speed car. It's fun. You know, it's fun going through the gears.
It is. Especially with that pistol grip. That pistol grip just changes everything.
It's a great car. It's fun.
It's a great car.
But then at the same time, I got the Hellcat with the 8-speed automatic, which just takes
different.
it to it's just a different animal.
It's just different.
You know.
I didn't know, and I've said this. You've heard me say it many times. I'm not really impressed by Hellcats. I'm gonna go on record, and it'll be out there for the internet. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was very, very, very wrong. I respect Hellcats. They are just different.
They're fun cars.
They're comfortable.
Yeah.
They do everything you want them to do from a performance standpoint, but then they do everything you need them to do from an actual reliability daily driver standpoint.
Yeah.
It's literally the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, if Dodge would put the car on a diet, you know, let's just say the Hellcat was a 3,600 pound car.
Nothing would touch it.
I mean,
nothing would touch it.
It's a whole different conversation.
Nothing would touch it.
But for as big of a car as it is, and for what it does, and how, you know, and you can easily modify it to do more. It's just a great car. If you're a Mopar guy, it's a great car. It's a fun car. You know, and I see guys, you know, there's fast Mustangs, there's fast Camaros out there, but as we talked about, you know, we grew up driving Mopars. To me, I always felt like I just missed that muscle car era.
Me too.
You know, I mean,
because we heard about it, but we didn't live it. Now we lived it.
Saw it. I mean, I saw it at the end. You know, I saw, you know, all my brothers had muscle cars. Their friends, you know, Walter Armstrong had a nasty '69 Chevelle. Okay. Joe Murray had a '69 Chevelle. You know, Pepper had his Super B. You know, there were just so many guys. I grew up in Troy. You know, Barry Monk was around with his Challenger. You know, Gator had the Javelin. Punkin had a Chevelle. You know, I remember Jimmy June had his Duster. You know, you had Shine, you know, Gold had a yellow road. All of these guys had these cars in Troy. So there was just a bunch of muscle cars in Troy, you know, when I was a kid growing up. And I saw all of those things. And then that time kind of went away.
Yeah.
Then when the Hellcat came back, it was just like resurgence of the muscle car era. And for me, you know, I was at a point in my life where I was like, you know what, I can take advantage of this. You know, here's a Mopar muscle car. You know, we're probably not going to get this again.
I don't think we will. I think Stellantis is doing everything they can to destroy this.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that because anyone who's watched my channel knows how I feel about Stellantis.
Yeah,
and this is more about our family and what unites us as Moses men. Mopars are what we all have in common.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
For me, it was like, you know, this is this second coming in the Mopar era. I mean, the muscle car era. Dodge put together a great platform with the Hellcat.
As they did in the 60s, baby.
So this is it. Yeah, let's relive it and let's do it. But these cars are always going to hold special places for me. I mean, there's a lot of memories with them. They're just, you know, when I'm in them, you know, your dad was down here and we were able to ride around. We're listening to Heat Wave and all of that, riding around in the Demon. He's got his arm out the window. And, you know, for me, it was just kind of flipping the script, because I can remember as a kid riding around with him in the Roadrunner or one of the other cars that we had, you know, and I'm watching him drive. And now I'm driving, and in my car,
it's surreal, isn't it?
So it's
it's surreal.
It's cool.
It's. I love the fact that you just brought that up, because maybe you'll remember this, but I'm gonna try to remind you, and then I'll ask one last question. We'll cut this short. Do you remember the first time we talked about stroker motors?
Yeah.
And you actually asked me a bunch of questions, and it was like, wait, you want my opinion? It's kind of like that feeling. Like I felt like what you just described with my dad. Like it was kind of weird. Like you remember, I was like, I remember always going to you for all the advice, and now I've learned something. Like I've actually made it. It's crazy.
Well,
it's crazy.
You were into the stroker scene before I was into it, you know, because at the time, you know, I didn't get my car yet, and then. So once I bought the Demon and I started rebuilding it, then I started looking at different things, different options. And of course, technology has advanced so much, and you know, you really have to take advantage of that. You know, they didn't have stroker motors, or guys were welding and making stroker cranks, but they weren't as reliable as they are today. I mean, it's just a totally different thing, totally different era. you know, you got cars now, you know, you can stroke a motor and have it on the street and have a 10-second car. You know, which back in the day was really difficult because, you know, compression was so high, the cam was so radical. You don't
Power
necessarily
train
have to
would
do
not
that.
handle it too.
Yeah, you don't have to do that with a stroker motor now.
No.
You can get the horsepower and have a somewhat tame motor that puts out the power and the torque because of the stroke. You know, it's just different times. Technology has come a long way, and then now, like we talk about the Hellcats and all the other new cars, you know, forced induction just makes it ridiculous. You know, you see guys turning times now that, you know, were drag strip cars.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right.
You know, so
So I'll end this amazing interview, and I love you with everything that I am. What I was gonna ask you was your first car, but that's not a good question because everybody asks that. Out of all the cars in our family that we had, and you have a unique perspective, you have seen all of the cars. I've
Seen a lot of
seen
them.
most of them. You've seen all of them. What's your favorite?
you know, it's hard because I think it's a three-way tie for me.
Whoa! I did not expect that.
No, it is. You know, the GTX is of course is iconic. You know, and I drove it in high school. You know, and I got to have a lot of fun in that car.
I'm surprised because we have a member of our family that ruined people driving cool
Yeah.
cars. So I'm not
I
gonna
got to
mention
drive
him,
it.
but
I didn't get driving much, but I did get to drive it, and just the fact of what it is. It's a super track pack car. Comes factory with the 410 gears. I mean, it for what it was, what it is. It was just a wicked fun car to drive.
it's one of the baddest cars in
Yeah.
our area, if not the baddest car in our
Yeah,
area.
at the time
Do you
it
remember
came
what
out,
the
it was
super
a
track pack
monster on the
consists
street.
of? I know what it does. I'm just asking. Do you remember what it
you got the
consists of?
60 rear end, you got the Hemi 4-speed,
Yep.
you know, you got the 440. It could be a 6-pack or 4-barrel.
Or 4-barrel,
I mean,
yep.
it was it. I mean, that car would give a Hemi car a run for its money in a quarter mile.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
That car obviously was a fun car, but for me, two cars that really are close to me as well are the Farm Machine for one, because I can remember, you know, when they gave it to my brother Leonard, I wanted that car.
Ha.
You know, I wanted that car so much that I tracked down a Demon and built my own.
And built your own.
You know,
Yeah, that's true.
So you know, so that, you know, the 344 speed Demon is something that I've always liked that car. But again, your dad's Roadrunner, you know, that was a car I took my road test in. You know,
I did not know
I got
that.
my driver's license in that car.
Wow.
You know, so that's a car that's always going to be close to me.
I'm gonna get a '68 Roadrunner because of my dad's Roadrunner.
Yeah, B5 Blue 68 Roadrunner. You
I just
know,
don't want an
it's just
automatic. I gotta have
yeah.
3 pedals, and I don't even care about an engine. Just give me a chassis that I can build.
Yeah, that car just means a lot because, I mean, that was his daily driver. We were in
I
that
know.
car everywhere. I learned.
Is it? Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I was with him the night we crashed it.
yeah, I
You
know.
know, and so
One of those impromptu things because I jumped in the car with Uncle Leonard.
Yeah,
I was in the car with Uncle Leonard.
Yeah, so I was there that night that happened, and you know, and everything else. But you know, it was just one of those cars. You know, just has a lot of great memories for me. Just learning
me
how to
too.
drive in it, driving in it, getting my driver's license in that car.
Okay.
You know, and I think one of the things about it is just learning to respect the muscle cars
Yeah.
for what they were. You know, and
I learned so much more than I ever intended to in this interview, and I'm not even gonna say thank you. I'm just gonna say that I love you. You are my world. Thank you so much for taking the time to give me this opportunity. I know you're busy. I know what you got to do in the
we're
morning.
good, man. I'm glad you guys got to come down.
This
and I got
this
to hang
was
out
cool.
With you.
This was so cool. I'm gonna end it as I always say. I'm gonna jump in here with my uncle. I'm gonna give you a hug because it's important to me.
All right, man.
So this is 3-Pedal J. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm saying rev it up, dump the clutch, grab a gear, disappear. Peace.
Peace.